in first.
That's why.
It's true. You paved our path. Thank you.
And that's why men should always go first, because they will look the worst. And that helps everybody out. Hi, guys. Let's try one more time. Hi, guys. This is going to be a different kind of panel than you're used to. I think you probably figured that out by the title, which I'm guessing is part of the reason why you are here. So prepare yourselves for something completely different. And where are our slides?
Well, that's slide one, right?
Oh, there we go. So let us begin. We'll make some introductions very quickly. My name is Justin Ellis. I am a senior editor at ESPN. I work for the magazine as well as the website, so I edit stories for both. I've been there for about 2 years. Before that, I was at the Neiman Journalism Lab, writing about a lot of companies that are around ONA. And also, I guess I should promote a podcast, because I do a podcast now for ESPN. It's called Double Truck Stories. It's audio versions of magazine stories, so please check that out. And also, as you'll notice here, this is the convenient tweeting slide for making jokes at our expense or tweeting out any insights that you might find in today's talk. Mitra.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mitra Kalita. I'm the Vice President for Programming at CNN Digital. I was previously at the Los Angeles Times as the managing editor, was at Quartz, the Wall Street Journal, Newsday, Mint in India, hold on, the Associated Press, and I think that's it.
I think you just hit ONA Yahtzee.
Did I? Oh, the Washington Post!
That's it.
I was at the Washington
Bingo.
Post. in
That's
this
the
town.
magic square.
And I'm going to leave it there. I think that's enough. Is it?
It's more than enough.
Okay.
You're enough. Hi. That's my phone. I'm Elena Bergeron. I'm editor-in-chief of SB Nation. So that's sbnation.com, our 300 team blogs, and also MMAfighting.com and our collection of combat sport blogs. Before that, I was at Complex, and before that, I did a decade at ESPN the magazine. So we have that in common. Hi.
Hello. If not for you, I would not be there now. So the topic of today's panel is here to reassure you in these very bleak times. You have spent time in the last few days here at ONA learning about the future, learning about how to manage all of the many things that are happening right now in this industry, learning skills, and potentially learning about ways to take care of yourself. But really, let's talk about some real things. Let's talk about the fact that it's not perhaps an easy time to be a journalist. There are a lot of things that are changing on the technology end. There's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of challenges. There's also a lot of stress. And in times like this, you have to think to yourself, there's got to be a better way. And if you're not somebody that's perhaps into Tony Robbins, if you miss having Oprah on your TV on a regular basis, congratulations, we have good news for you. Ladies and gentlemen, the art of getting shit done. That's right. This book will be available afterwards. No, it won't, trust me. The art of getting shit done really is more than a book, it's really a system. It's a pyramid. It's a way to think about how your life can be changed, how your life, you can really think about the product development cycle of you. And because it's a system, you have to think about the benefits. All of these benefits can be yours if you follow the things that we talk about today. You don't have to take our word for it. I think we've got a clip. That's right, we don't have a clip. I can't speak. No, this session is about real talk. We're going to talk today about career advancement. We're going to talk about navigating the weird stuff that happens in your job when you're trying to move up in your job or trying to maybe leave your job. We are going to talk about the things that you have to deal with trying to balance your job and your life. We are going to talk about taking care of yourself because this is a stressful line of business to be in. So I think we should get right into it. Let's start at the beginning. Let's start with jobs. Getting jobs, holding on to jobs, hopefully. If you've taken a new job, you have interviewed, you've gone through the process, there is an idealism, but then there also is the reality. How do you balance those things? Once you've gotten through the door, how do you balance that?
That's the toughest one of all time. It's a great question, but I always refer back to normal Vox media language, which is thrive on change. And like we say that a lot as a joke internally in the company, but it's really true. Like having come of age in journalism at a period where journalism was changing real fast, and like being one of those people that grew up on magazines, and in particular sports magazines, like I'm the nerd with like the ripped out pages on my wall. And so to have like physical media have undergone such a seismic shift while I was at the magazine was like horrible at the time, but also like the greatest sort of prep for later in life, because it made me realize that the currency and the value that I had to media writ large was ideas. And ideas can take shape, and you can, format them a bunch of different ways for if you want to pivot to video or if you want to write real long things about them, whatever else. But it was learning how to best showcase ideas was like the thing that kept me along those tracks. So even when you get hired for a particular job and you come in the door and you're thinking, I'm going to do it this way, this is what I told them, this is what we all agreed on, and then like 6 months in, some funding drops out, or you lose like 10 advertisers, and it's like, psych, you thought you were gonna have this budget to be able to do this thing or that thing, and it's like, well, you have to sit down and say, what are the ideas that I'm most passionate about? What are the things that originally were most core to what my plan was gonna be, and how can I realign around those, cling to those, because those are the ways of innovating and the signal boost that you need to like actually continue to be successful in a role that changes.
I think that's really good advice. I think idealism for me is the journalism. I entered this industry with great belief, and I think I made a pledge actually pretty early on that if I lost that sense of belief or that sense of purpose or that sense that I could change things, then I would leave journalism. I mean, that's how much it matters. And so I think actually making that mission a part of your work and also making that transparent to people so people around you understand why you're there is kind of step one, right? So even before you enter the job. Obviously, I've had a lot of jobs that couldn't even remember some of those companies, but I do remember them. Kevin Merritt is over there, so he's like, how could you forget the Washington Post? But with each job I've started, I've also tried to keep literally a Google Doc of why am I here? And I think it's important to say, like, I was driven by this, and this is what attracted me to the job. When new folks start at CNN now, and I've just started recently doing this, I've asked that they keep their fresh set of eyes also in like a doc or something. And again, I keep referencing Google Docs. You can use whatever you want. Sorry, Google. Just because you're never going to have that fresh set of eyes again on everything that looks so broken. And in some ways, you're most idealistic and you're most purposeful in those early days. And for me, that becomes something that you can reference later as you become kind of like everybody else, or if you become the type of person who says, well, that's just how we do it here, right?
But how do you fight becoming everybody else? Like, I 100% agree with you, because when I joined ESPN, ESPN's a big enough company, very similar to CNN, I'm guessing, that they have a very thorough orientation, and one of the things in the orientation is they actually show you a film about the Walt Disney Company, so you learn about Walt and his vision, and it's hard not to get swept up and think, my God, I'm part of a global and perhaps intergalactic empire, literally, because of Star Wars. So you do that, and you're just like, yeah, I'm going to go forth and like prosper and tear down things and make all of the content. And then I remember not too long after that, I had one of my first closes for the magazine, and it was a whole day. You know, it took me from 9 until, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night, and I was so happy when it was done, but I was also so drained, and I wanted to celebrate, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna buy myself a pizza, and I realized that I got out of the newsroom so late that there was no place for me to find pizza, and it's like, you know what, that's okay. Like, I'm doing really good work, and I've got to remember that. But at the same time, like you're saying, How do you fight becoming part of that system that just says this is the way we do things?
There's a book I read about urban education called Small Victories, and I actually apply a lot of the lessons of teachers to changing a newsroom, which is you actually take solace sometimes in small victories. So it's those nights that you're like, actually, this was worth it, right? We did something. And especially right now, and I think at conferences, we focus on such vast change, right? And it almost becomes, it's just so big, it feels like I can't take that on. And
right.
I think that if you start, it's almost like I've written 2 books, and you can't start writing a book until you write 1 word on a page, and then 1 word becomes 1 paragraph, and then 1 paragraph becomes 1 page, and then you have a chapter. And again, this sounds so basic, but in many ways, change in a newsroom is really similar. It's 1 story at a time. I think, at least at CNN, every day is an unexpected day, right? I mean, we signed up for the news business not knowing what's going to come. And so in some ways, your strategy can only be dictated by this. There is, of course, a broader strategy, but in the short term, there's what can I do today? And sometimes I actually find that liberating, because the best I can do is with the story I'm trying to tell right now.
Right. Elena, one of the things we talked about beforehand is the idea of shifting when you're in a job. You mentioned you were at the magazine, you were at Complex. If you're somebody who's in this room or who's wherever across the ONA landscape, you're doing one job, you're a reporter, you're an editor, you're a social producer, but you want to slide into something else, what do people do to actively try to get there while they're at their current job?
Well, that art of getting shit done thing applies directly to this, because we all know there's only 24 hours in a day. And if you are crazy busy in your current job or super duper underwater, there's no time for you to think about that thing or to sit and say, you know, this is an area that I'm really interested in, and I see a lot of other media companies really diving deep into this, and I kind of think this is the future. And so if you're able to talk to your manager about what the business priorities are at your company, that is sometimes insightful, because then the manager knows that you're sort of interested in helping everyone or helping the bottom line and figuring out the best ways you can push the entire company ahead by developing your skill set. Sometimes those managers are like, I don't care. I'm trying to get, you know, these page views or whatever else, and that is fine too. So you have to make some decisions about how you're going to spend your time outside the office, if it's worth it to you to invest in yourself and say, I'm going to take this course, or I'm going to learn how to make my own gifts, or like different things that will sort of like pivot you into different areas. It's not to make fun of you. I literally did that going to Complex, as I was like, I never had the chance to do this when I was at ESPN. There was nobody that like would have shown me this, but this is what I like about the internet. And so it's like, oh, I want to make that. I didn't officially get paid to start making gifts, but it sure did help my emails, so that's fine. But as you're thinking about that thing and seeing like the stories that you want to tell and having this passion for either speaking with your own like genuine voice about the thing that you cover, or making some headway within a really crowded media field, the things that develop you will enable you to do that going forward in the future. So it's really a time management conundrum in some ways. And you know, if you work at a good company with good bosses that'll support you, a lot of times if you pitch it against how this will help all of us, like this will change our newsroom to be able to do this, like people will resource that thing. Like a lot of times your manager's just too busy to sort of like sit down with you personally and establish a development plan and say, I think you should try this thing that may or may not have an effect on anything. Like nobody's boss has time for that. You have to be sort of like the Kickstarter that says, I'm gonna figure this thing out.
Well, Mitra, building on that, one of the things that we talked about beforehand was if your boss, whatever level you're at, says no to something, but you think it's a really good idea. Maybe it's gifts, maybe it's newsletters, maybe it's doing podcasts or something like that. What do you have to do in order to sort of change their mind? Because we all know, we've all been there, and obviously we're right, and it's just that they are wrong. So what is the thing that we have to do to persuade them?
My boss is sitting in the front row.
I know.
Thank you.
Now is the time
I
to ask for the
disagree.
raise.
No. I think in digital, we're so saved by metrics. I really believe, so in the real talk, if there's no audience or money for your ideas, now there's idealism, but I'm just getting to the real talk, right? Which is, if you have an idea and nobody is going to click on the thing and you don't have proof of that, then I'm not entertaining it, right? I feel like, especially in many ways, experimentation is so possible to show proof of concept right now, whether that's off-platform or by building followings, or just in any number of ways. And I think a lot of people kind of innovate in these ways where they're like, wouldn't it be great if we did X? So to Elena's point, which is, people don't have time for that, I think showing the metrics around how this could work. We've already done X, this is the success we saw. What if we were to, do 2 more a week? On the monetization front, I think that it is incumbent upon us to at least be aware of how does this situate or fit into making money somehow or being money adjacent. How does this help our brand? How does this help and not all of you are in the same revenue model. But I just feel like you gotta, in the real talk, you gotta bring some of that real talk to the pitches. And if you haven't done, I wouldn't even say it's just homework, right? It's not like a list of what you wanna do. It's kind of a list of what you've already done in order to prove that what you are pitching has already worked.
The asterisk I'll put on that is, let's just be honest. The thing that will help your case beyond that is also killing it in what you are supposed to be doing every day.
That's fair.
Please do not say, I think I want to do this. This is how I think it'll, get us ahead. Here's how, that will affect the traffic or the money or the revenue, and, be failing at your current job.
It's the wrong kind of double down, basically. That feels like a good way for us to pivot, and that's for anybody that's doing bingo. Please make sure to mark that down. To talking about pitching new stories and projects, because one of the things that I think is important is how do you wrap other people into that? Because it feels like it's not just enough to say, hey, I've got this really good idea and here's some metrics and here's some things. Is that, for an example, one of the things that we did at ESPN the magazine last year is we had this issue that was called the World Fame issue, and it looked at stories around fame and athletes, celebrity, how there's different sort of prisms into that. One of the things that was a part of it was this 2-page spread that was called basically the World Fame Index. There's a lot of stats people that work at ESPN, and instead of having them, well, I shouldn't say instead. It's not like we said don't watch the Texas UNC game or something, but we had them look at different metrics for following athletes. Basically, look at their social followings, look at their endorsement numbers, look at their salaries, things like that. We created basically this database, and we're able to rank people. And it was one thing in print, but we didn't really have a plan in digital for it. So I was like, well, this is crazy. We should find some way to do something with this. And one of the ways that I was able to sort of help build some momentum for it was going to other people, going to the people in our international team, going to the people in other sports groups. Particularly because this was a World Fame Index, there was a lot more soccer players than US sports stars on there. So that was one of the ways to sort of help move this along. How do you think getting other people onto your adventure kind of helps move that along?
No, it moves it along a ton, both in the sense of you can say that something is going to push everybody forward, but if people don't really believe that, you'll see it in their contributions to your project, right? Because you could come to me with that idea, and I'm like, yeah, Justin, whatever. Yeah, okay, I built the thing. Here. Having people that are on board to push you and challenge the idea that you're bringing to them is the best kind of collaboration, and it makes it more valuable to everybody involved. But it's a thing that you have to use a lot of social currency for, and also figure out what hill you're willing to die on, right? Because you don't get that opportunity, and you can't rally people around every single idea that dawns on you in your head. But it's a morale booster when they work, and when people are able to collaborate in a way that gets them seen and gets them noticed. So the idea that not only are you going to do something cool, but you're going to share the recognition for it is one of the big things that I use as we think about new projects or place some bets on some things we think might work, but we don't necessarily have all the numbers behind, what it would take to incubate that. You say, well, hey, I don't know for sure that this is going to succeed, but it's a break from what we're doing day to day, and it gets you out of that hamster wheel. And secondly, if it does work, guess who gets promoted? All of us. Cool.
Right. Mitra, so the getting shit done process, patented process, if you're the type of person that is motivated in that way, how can being someone that gets shit done sometimes be at odds with advancing in your career?
Well, that's a real question. Well, just one way is that if you're someone who gets shit done, everyone comes to you. So what happens is that, if you want to get something done, you go to the busiest person to do it. So I think there is a danger, and I say this as a lady leader, and I know some of you are out there, is that you could become a resource versus a visionary, right? You could become the person who is doing either the grunt work or the behind the scenes work, and someone else is getting the credit. So see Elena point 1 about sharing the credit and being generous, even as you want that from others who are involved in the process. I think sometimes it can also feel at odds with the goals of maybe, I don't want to say corporate America, but kind of like typical advancement, because I think people are looking for the visionaries versus the doers. In journalism, we have a great benefit in some ways because our industry is one of micromanagement. It really is. I mean, I believe journalism is so much about the details and getting those details right and as perfect as we can get them. And if you're the type of person who digs in on that, I believe in the meritocracy of newsrooms, and I believe that that is what you reward. And so in newsrooms, I think that can be something that helps you advance your careers. As I say that, I think digital is in the midst of needing to make sure that we have a lot of people around us who have insight and transparency into what we're doing. How are we making copy better? What is going through my head as I'm like, that headline sucks, guys. We got to get to this better one, right? And for some of us who's been doing this for a while, it kind of is, it becomes instinct. And so if you, or the person who gets things done, I think sometimes you're not transparent in your process of what you know. And so I'm trying to be a lot more self-aware about, this is what's in my head as I'm reacting to this not working. Here's what might work, and here's why. That takes 5 extra seconds, and if you're like me, and you're just like, I gotta go move on to the next thing, you almost have to build in that process for everyone else around you to have transparency, and also you want your people to be learning from you getting shit done, because you get more shit done, the more people around you get shit done.
Yeah,
well,
I think that's a good point that you made. I'm sorry, I just wanted to co-sign because that documentation process of like, I learned how to do this, I got very good at doing it, and now I'm gonna give it to this person so that like they can grow and develop in this way is so crucial to your next step. And so like you get good at stuff and it just becomes easier, like you said, I'll just do it myself. Like, that's fine. I'll just take that project on too, in addition to the other things that I'm trying to do. And that's absolutely the wrong impulse because it's just going to make you crazy. Like, it's not going to work. The second thing I would add to that is the guiding principle to me about getting shit done, ultimately, especially as there are a million things on your to-do list, is at the end of every day, take some time or set aside some time to get future you an easier life. Yes. And so you have 20 things to get done in the course of the day, and like if 3 of those things drop off, but you take that extra 45 minutes at the end of the day to sort of like line yourself up better or read the thing that will help you manage people better, or like to really think about a process that you kind of failed at and figure out like, oh, well, what would I have done better about that situation? What can I apply to that tomorrow? All that stuff helps you even later in the week. Like literally that turnaround is that real, because like you think about it and you take that to your meetings going forward and you say like, I'm not going to repeat that process. That is infinitely more valuable than sending that last email before you get out the door.
Well, that's a good way to go to the next thing I wanted to talk about is productivity. Because very specifically, there's all sorts of ways that all of us need to find ways to be more productive, whether it's within the 24-hour cycle, week, month. Google Docs, which apparently at this point is now like our sponsor for this section, is only one method. But quickly, like, what are some tools or tricks or just things that you see that you need to keep things productive? For me personally, and this is, I knew that I had been working in media for a long time when I realized that this was the thing that I was gonna like ride or die for, but it's making meetings more efficient, you know? Like, who here has been in a meeting? Put your hands up if you have been in a meeting that has run too long and has like lost its course and is now someplace like in the deep sea and no one's paying attention and hopefully someone took notes. Like, it boggles my mind that people don't time box meetings, that you don't stick specifically to an agenda. Number one, don't waste people's time. Like, we've all got shit to do. That is how you get shit done, is time. But also, they just become less effective. So for me, like, whenever I'm scheduling a meeting, it's like we're doing something for 30 minutes. I'm gonna be like the school teacher. Once the bell is done, like, get out of my room. I don't wanna see you anymore. Like, go forth. Like, so what are some things that two of you feel are necessary for productivity?
I think I am curt but decisive on email. And so for those of you who have received those emails, I apologize. Because I get a lot of emails from people that are so clearly, they've spent a lot of time on it. And I respect that, but I just can't reciprocate in many ways. And I'm just trying to get back to you. And I think you all know this. When you don't respond to somebody, they take it very personally. And I think certainly in management that's true, and you might not even know that you did that, but you've offended somebody. And so I actually really try to get out in front of that. Now, I'm not saying I'm at 100% rate, but I do try to respond quickly and decisively to what is being asked. And that's just something where I've stopped caring whether the tone comes off in the wrong way, with the hope that the recipient knows that I am a nice person. So you almost just have to say, I'm a nice person, I'm hitting send.
But what's the, like, real quick, but like, how does the prison for that change being a female leader?
You know, I just got to get shit done. I mean, I worry about it, but then it's kind of like having difficult conversations with people, right? Like, I am trying to correct a behavior or improve a behavior. The more honest with you that I am, it's like I have the same conversation with myself, kind of just, you know, real quick, like, I'm a nice person, I'm gonna do this. And I think I'm just at a stage where I'm getting so much email, I'm trying to keep us on I'm trying to keep things dynamic and changing. And I feel like hopefully my intentions in that process are naked and transparent to you in other ways. So that's kind of what I'm really resting on with this other piece, which is, you know, real kind of short, terse, this is what I'm thinking, this is my response.
The nicest thing that I can do is care about the goal that we have set together. Is how I'll phrase that, because in the interim, there are gonna be moments where people are like, man, that was a little more clear than I was ready for. Like, I care about your success. But ultimately, like, I think particularly in the workplace, people have to understand that, like, you know, we don't necessarily have to be friends. Like, that's fine. Like, it's all good. Like, we can still be cordial to each other and maintain a respectful relationship at work. And, like, not being friends doesn't mean that, like, you're openly antagonistic of somebody. It just means that, you know, like, my mama loves me. We're good. Like, are you clear, though? Are you set? And so, like, to the first question, the thing that I have been very adamant with myself and hopefully with, you know, some of the people that I work with is about clarity in goal setting. Setting mushy goals is like the biggest inhibitor to actually getting stuff done, because people interpret them in various different ways. And I have no understanding of, like, how sometimes things get misinterpreted in that way, where I'm like, oh, you know, a good goal for you would be, you know, achieving this by the end of the year. And people go, so I started, you know, a podcast. And it's like, that's not what I said. So the more concrete that you are about setting goals, like, allows for both you and the person you're working with to, like, independently and proactively raise red flags about these are the things that are in the way of me getting my goals. And it's like, number one, you're not available enough to me, or like you're not getting me the stuff that I need to meet this target by this date. And I'm like, true, okay, I guess I gotta do better. But like, if we've been clear about what the goal is, like we both can operate independently about how to get there and sort of like navigate the niceties in between there.
Speaking of niceties, let's get to some real talk. Our next section is super important because we want to talk about personal brands. Because you know what? What the fuck is a personal brand in 2017? Do you still need it? Like, why?
It's a
Why?
hashtag.
It's a hashtag.
Is it? What's the hashtag?
Hashtag personal brand.
Hashtag,
All right, I'm
hashtag
going
I
with
get shit
that.
done. I don't know. Like, why? Why personal brand's a thing?
I think I'm over it. I mean, and it's easy to say that because at some stage you're like, and I've been in that place where you're like, nobody knows who I am, nobody knows what I did. Am I going to get another job? Nobody knows who I am at ONA, like all these things, right? But without the substance, without the journalism, you're nothing. So I think we're kind of at a stage, are we post-brand yet? I don't know. I mean, are we in a stage where the shallow nature of some people's brands is becoming clear? I think so.
I feel like it.
Yeah.
Let's call it the goopification of
Okay.
journalism.
Oh.
Yes. Yes. Gwyneth knows what she did.
Yeah. Oh.
Tend to totally agree with that because like your personal brand can be one thing, and I have this conversation all the time because sports writers in particular love Twitter, and it's like that feedback loop of like being known for something on Twitter is really super good. What did you write today though? Like, it's like, I don't know if John Ketchum's in the room, but like he's one of our deputy editors and he helps us out a lot with that, which is put it on the website. Stop building your personal brand. That doesn't, like, that's not helping me.
That's real, though.
I actually do
That's
think
real.
this year I've really tried to, in some ways, just write. Even if it's a little thing, because I just feel like the practice of the thing we're asking everybody else to do, I mean, those of you who've been managing and then when you have to write and you're like, oh my God, this is so hard. We ask people to do 5 of these a day. And there is something to that is beyond the brand. It's like, all right, girl, you're talking about substance, you better get some of your own. Yep. So that, I think, has just in the what's hard and going after it, I've been trying to do that more because that doesn't feel like it's for my brand. It literally feels like, hey, something struck me, I'm going to write about it.
True. Well, another way to look at this, like for the people that are behind the scenes, let's say you are a producer of some kind, you are an editor, you are someone that works in product, basically anybody that works in a media company that doesn't have a byline in some kind of way, how do you get recognition? Like how, if we are saying that like personal brands are like 2 seasons ago, what do you have to do to get recognition if you are behind the scenes?
This is gonna sound horrible, but it's like
This is the place. We're getting shit done.
Where you're like, okay, what would that project look like without me? And so it's like, okay, well, these 2 things were successful, or you worked with this video crew, or you worked with this writer. The next time that writer has a story that comes in 8,000 words over budget, or like, you know, you go out on a video shoot and I'm not there, what happens? And if it works the same, that's fine. But if it doesn't, I'm gonna need a shout out. Sorry. It's like making that clear to people, and like not a way that sabotages stuff, because that's definitely not what I'm advocating, but it's saying that like the staff is not all interchangeable, and like making people realize through debriefs after effective projects come together, hey, let's come into a room and say, how do we repeat this same success? Well, it starts by like recognizing the people that were crucial to actually getting it done. So for me, debriefs are really super important, both for like me and for highlighting the staff, because there are certain things that, you know, I don't know necessarily what happened in the course of a video production when somebody's on the road. But when we come back and we talk about, man, that thing did numbers, like who was the brainchild behind that? And it's like, well, actually, it was that PA. And you're like, you.
Yeah, you can't be afraid to basically say, I made that, like, I built that. I guess another thing, though, when people think about their personal brand, or whatever the hell that was, there's this dimension of their network, of the people around them. Something we haven't touched on yet is mentoring. This is something that people in here have different sort of, relationships to, whether you are a mentor or a mentee. If you are someone that is looking for mentors or even allies, how do you do that in a way that is not just, to be honest, creepy? You all laugh because you know.
Because, yeah, you're about to email me, I know.
I see.
Somebody's in your mansion.
Oh, here you
Right
are.
now.
Hi. I think, I think all three of us feel like we owe it to lift people up, right? I think we're pretty upfront about that. So I know some of it'll be creepy, and for certain people, it could be as, hey, you're being creepy. That is not how you go to people, and I can be blunt with them, right? Depending on how they came to me and through who. And because that is a part of that process of fixing them up so that they're of value to our industry, right? That is how seriously I take the let's fix it up. I think for mentees, you look for something where it's a two-way relationship. So every time we talk, I know what I'm getting out of it because I'm always getting something out of it. It might be that you are teaching me Snapchat's geolocation filter, or maybe my gift game gets better, or I don't mean to sound so old about it, but you know what I mean. Like you're teaching me some things that I really could benefit from. Or there's a different way of looking at the world. But I feel like the more we have relationships where it's clear both parties, and I don't mean it in a transactional way.
That's the thing, it's not business.
I really mean as a different lens on a story or a different lens on our industry. And I think those are the most successful matches. I tend to operate in a mode of constantly being on the lookout for talent and for people who will teach me up in these different ways. So I think it's kind of how I live my life is not just that it's like a mentor or a sponsorship or a rabbi or all these terms we throw around in newsrooms, as much as I'm engaged with our profession in, that is how I'm learning, what the next thing might be. I just feel like you have to be open to that.
No, for me, the way I think about it, I was talking to some people today. This is a weird way to think about it right now, but you know how in those zombie apocalypse movies, there's people who are or I guess they even do them now, they have the bug out bag. They have their get out bag, for when shit goes sideways and humanity is about to go under because there's zombies, they have the kit ready. And you need the journalism version of that. And the version of that involves a lot of people, you know? You need to have a lot of people that you're gonna meet in places like this. And some of those ties are going to be stronger, some of them are going to be weaker. One of the things that we were talking about beforehand is that there are people that are actually mentors, but Elena, there are people who are also just going to help you out, but not exactly mentors.
Exactly. I think that was the realest thing that I could give to people who are seeking mentors is, number one, know who you're seeking out and have actual questions for them. Don't just go, can you mentor me? Because it's well, why, what do I have to give you? How did you find me? Do you even know what I do? It's a real question. And it's not because I'm trying to be rude or I'm not open to that sort of relationship, but it's I don't know if I'm the person to help you, honestly. So knowing what people's job titles and sort of job histories are, and Google is your friend, is really, really helpful to how you solicit mentors, because that's how I found a lot of mine, was just saying oh, that's that person that does this. Let me ask them 2 or 3 things about their job or what they would do, given the benefit of hindsight if they were in my position now. And it means that you create a takeaway, right? I'm looking to get something out of this relationship that I know that you can give me. And that's a smart way for both of us to use our time. I can tell you. I can't tell you about what the future of journalism is going to look like in 2025. I don't know. I'm trying to make it, but I don't have that sort of broad range answer for people. And specifically when people are trying to develop their contact network and their network of people in different newsrooms who you might end up hitting up for a job or a recommendation or something later. It's really important from that standpoint to say, I just want to ask you about the work that you do at this place. Do you mind if we get coffee? And it's yeah, Like, I'm passionate about talking about that thing. Let's do it.
I mean, I think if you have a short list of people outside of your organization that you can call for a quick gut check, like a 30-second conversation, that makes life so much more efficient on those tough days where you're like, did I make the right decision? I mean, right, we kind of stew either in silence or alone over it, and just having a group like that to turn to is invaluable.
Right. I think Anne Friedman came up with this, or maybe it was, I feel like I heard it on like Call Your Girlfriend, but like the personal board of directors, you know, like you need those people. This is a good segue for the next portion, because we've spent so much time talking about all the things that help you build your career, but also like how do you sustain yourself in this business when things can be extremely stressful at all times. Sometimes you end up going to the Google party. Sometimes you end up staying too late at the Google party. But okay, like again, real talk, why do we not talk more in this business about why it is a stressful business and how it can burn people out?
Because we're scared of how that looks to the outside world. You know what I mean? Like, we're supposed to always have it together, and like, given the way that like journalism is represented in the popular imagining, particularly in the sports writing world, that's supposed to be the coolest job you can have. And I'm like, it is. I have not slept in like 4 days. I'm like, you know, Yankees extra innings, can you please not? Like, stop it.
I was up until 5 a.m. when Cleveland broke the streak, man, so I know this feeling.
Yeah, and I think like the best thing that we can sort of do in this position is sort of start to acknowledge that. And I mentioned to you guys, like, I was reading Corey Sika, who just left Vox Media and took over for New York Times head of style department, which, dream job. In theory, did an interview leading into that job where he talked about the fact that, like, I think the question was like, how did you survive media, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, no. Did I survive media? Because there were a lot of days where I was like actively looking between the sofa cushions for like money, like as an adult, not as like an entry level, you know, person in journalism. There were a lot of times where I moved out of my apartment in the dead of night because I was behind on rent, or I owed, you know, a couple grand to the IRS. And he was very frank about the fact that, like, yeah, he got to this position, which is really, really dope and has an opportunity to do a lot of, you know, culture shifting things. But he was like, let's be honest about it. Like, leaving, you know, Gawker or the All and, you know, going to Vox Media and going here and going there and taking these risks on yourself and, you know, trying to explore new media opportunities, it takes a toll on you because you want to be successful and you want to do the thing that you asked in the opening question, which is like, I got in the door, had a bunch of ideas. Oh shit, it's going to be really tough to execute against these things. I'll just stay up all night for the next, you know, 7 straight nights. I think we need to be frank with one another as journalists about saying, no, that's what it took for me to get to this place. I wish I'd have known better how to ration my time. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do?
I think that honesty is necessary. I think in some ways the traits of the best journalists are unhealthy traits. We can stay up all night and get a lot done. We get adrenaline rushes off of the news, even when it's really tragic, actually. We can work really, really hard, and it's kind of like a fast and furious action. And I think you all know what I'm talking about. Like, the newsroom itself has a lot of these tendencies where the flip side of them is something I fear. And I especially fear it in this news cycle because it's just been relentless. And I think there's some merit in prepping for that fall now when we're in the middle of it. And so you got to find your thing, but you know, my thing is seeing theater or seeing shows, or this week I saw Bruno Mars. I mean, it's like you find your escapes, and it's often on not the busiest day of the news cycle, but maybe the next day or the third day that you have to do that thing that takes you out of it. Because I really do fear that fall, if I'm being real honest. I mean, the flip side of what makes me get a lot of shit done is to actually get nothing done, and
yes.
I kind of do fear that state. So how do I have other things in my life that mean a whole lot to me? Mm-hmm. The other thing I'll do, just in the kind of life hacking mode, is if I'm away from my kids, or if it's like a really bad, again, it's the news cycle has been relentless,
But I do a lot of like 3-day weekends where we just go away, and I can't do grocery shopping, I can't answer the door, I can't get on. I mean, I'm still on my phone, I'm definitely available and accessible to staff, and I might be still working, but at least I'm in a physical space with my kids, and I'm present for some of those moments, right? And just that action of getting away, at least for the last few months, has certainly helped me get through a lot of it.
Self-care tip.
Same thing, you gotta make time to do some things that put the job part of things back in the proper context, right? Because we do have that adrenaline rush of getting things out and seeing people's response to it and watching the traffic numbers around it, et cetera, but like, if for some reason that didn't work or you failed at that, is that gonna result in you, like you said, crashing? And it shouldn't, right? Because like, that happens. It's inevitable that some things are not gonna work the way that you plan them. So you have to make time. For me, it's like making time to actually hang out with and be present with friends. Sometimes we go hiking, sometimes it's an art gallery, like, I don't know. But like having that moment of speaking to people who are outside of the journalism world who do not care at all about, like, I was nervous about this ONA panel I was gonna do. They're like, what? I don't know what ONA is. Yeah. I'm like, good job, thank you. I needed that. Thanks for that. And like, same thing
Like,
with,
I know nothing about metrics, and you're like, I love you, thank you.
you're my favorite. But like the same thing for, like I joke about this at the office because people are like, oh, you're back from Pret with like your bowl of superfood? But it's because the times when I'm the busiest in the office, or the times when I have so many projects to deal with and a lot of people like coming at me a million different ways, I find myself like eating the cleanest that I've ever eaten and like drinking the fewest drinks possible. I'm gonna still have a drink. But like it's because I don't have time to be groggy and I don't have time to feel kind of like, oh, or like have 3 p.m. like, you know, Cuban sandwich crush. Because I was like, damn, that was good, but now I'm sleepy. Like, I just physically don't have time for it. And so I try to be very aware of like what I'm putting in my body and, you know, am I getting to the gym, that kind of stuff, because like I feel the effect of it. Yeah. It's a super old lady answer, I'm sorry.
It's not, but like that's a real thing, because like it's a party to what you're both talking about, because in terms of the cycle that we see when like people thrive under pressure, like that is what this job is about. There's also food that gets associated with it, and we live for it, even though we know it's terrible.
Why
like,
are we all
everybody
sending
here is like, oh, there's gonna be newsroom pizza.
I was like, why are we sending pizza to each other?
And even if it's bad pizza, you're like, it's still pizza. Like, let's
it's
do
here
this.
in front of
and like,
me.
let's not lie, you all probably have your favorite in the vending machine in your newsroom. You're like, ooh, little powdered donuts. Like, let's go.
We got snacks.
And it's like, no, you can't do that. And I mean, you're right. You got to find time to carve out that thing that is going to keep you human. Like, I like, you know, I take my dog for walks. Like, I see a therapist. Like, I will go and do yoga. I will do something that like turns everything else off, even if it's for like an hour. Because then that's time that you get back where all of a sudden your brain is just like, oh, hey, what about that thing? Like, let's do this thing. Like, it feels to me, and I'm sorry because I'm going to go there, but like, it's that thing that you hear some people talk about, why people get ideas in the shower or on the toilet. Because it's like you've basically boxed yourself in this place where it's like, there's nothing else I can do except for this one activity. And all of a sudden, everything starts rushing back at you.
One thing I'll say too is I'll actually go to sporting events, like as a fan, because I like it. It's like really important to me to remember that like sports is not just my job, and we're not just like cranking out under pressure or against deadlines, you know, the writing against it. I'm like, no, I forgot that like I really actively enjoy it.
That's actually fun.
Yep.
Folks, if you want to start lining up, we've got 2 microphones here. We're going to start taking some questions in a bit. But the last chapter here is really just about balance. Because it's this thing that people talk about so much, like, why can't we have it all? And like, listen, having it all is probably bullshit.
Yep.
So it's about finding the things that are important to you in your life, right? So specifically, so y'all like Bob's Burgers, I guess.
Yeah. Or Tom Selleck.
As we were just talking about, like, how do you develop a healthy life that is outside of this work, whether it's with your family, whether it's with your friend family?
I literally live in a commune, so I'm not gonna lie. I have 7 close friends who live within a 10-block radius. I found all of them their houses or apartments.
So you're a realtor on the side,
I
too.
didn't pay for them. I just said, listen, if you don't buy this, you're an idiot. And I will watch your kids, and you'll watch mine, and this is how we're gonna live. Right? I'm not kidding, that's how I do it.
And
You
also
did get
these
that
are the
shit
10
done.
principles that I want you to adhere to.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, I do, well, actually, that was already a part of the covenant of
Right,
I
right.
found you a house, because they tend to have the same values. And they, you know, I have created a community around me that enables every aspect of my life, and I'm happy to be there for them. I mean, every time someone has a baby, I have kind of a bunch of stuff that I can whip out and be there for them, and I'll remind them of that when I need them to watch my kids for the next 2 years. But I never pretend that I am able to do this alone. I think that's, I just don't pretend. I think most of my team is aware of that sense of community in my life. It's like in and out all the time. And it's partly what I bring to the job, but it's also why if I don't have the job, I think I would still matter to people, and that is important beyond what I can do for them journalistically or in any kind of hierarchy. I mean, I'd like to think that they bought their houses because they love me, and at this point, really love my children. So that's one way that I've been able to.
Yeah, same. It's actual real world experiences and like stepping away from the computer sometimes and saying like, remember I said my mama loved me? Well, I gotta call her back or else she's gonna like rescind that. And so like making sure that I'm going home to New Orleans often enough to like actually have physical time with my family. And the same thing with like friends, as I've not been lucky enough to find a commune yet, as they get married and have kids
I
and
just
move
found
away.
a 2-bedroom, 2-bath in Jackson Heights.
Oh my God.
Email me. But like as people, kind of scatter across the country, across the world doing their own thing, making sure that like we're organizing trips together, like showing up at weddings together and making time to hang out and like, hobbies. We've got a lot of like crafting hobbies and, weird things.
We'll talk about
that
decoupage
get-
afterwards.
It's fun.
So let's just jump into it. Let's take some questions because we're starting to run out of time. Let's start over here. And make sure to tell everybody your name.
Hey, my name is Alex. I'm actually the managing video editor at Maryland's SB Nation affiliate, so I guess we're kind of coworkers. So nice to meet you. Also, Matt Ellentuck says hey.
Oh, hey, Matt. Hey.
Hey. My question was, how did you navigate and or manage the toughest decision you've had to make in your workplace, whether that was CNN, SB Nation, ESPN?
Man, that is a difficult one. I mean, any really difficult decision, and like I try to manage in a way that like it's not management by committee, but it's like to be a successful leader of any group of people, you gotta ask them like what they know. Like if I tried to sit in a corner and just deliberate, like I would crush myself under the pressure of like what those decisions mean to people. And you sort of like can forget in that light to ask people, well, what do you think about this? Or what are you seeing? And like, I can't promise you that I'm gonna make the decision that you're advocating for, but I do like to, small group and get the best minds in the room so I understand the entirety of the decision that I'm making and kind of like hold it up to the light and say, okay, none of these are ideal outcomes, but this is the one that I feel strongest about. And like, I won't give you a specific example, but the guiding factor in all the decisions that I make as a manager is always, is this something that I can live with? Like, I'm not gonna regret this. Like, this is the stance that I'm making and this is the path that I'm choosing because this is the outcome that represents who I am and sort of my way of thinking about how to lead people. And so it's like, I can live with that. I can sleep on that. It's not gonna be fun, but I can live with it.
Just to piggyback, because we want to get to more questions, but I just ask a simple question, which is, am I trying to do the right thing? And that'll often guide the decision. It doesn't always guide it doesn't always guide also the outcome, but then the question at night becomes, did I try to do the right thing, right?
I think for me, the biggest thing is often the toughest decisions are tough because they come from a place that involves our egos. And you have to sort of figure out how much of this is me and my own hurt feelings versus what is good for either the story, the project, the writer, the company, whatever you have at hand. And again, like it sounds kind of like Jedi or something to be like suppress your ego, but there is some part of that, and like realizing like how much of this is me just being stubborn because of the investment that I have in it. Over here.
Hi, my name is Emil. My question is basically if you could give some more specific insights or tips on how to balance not being a resource and still trying to be a visionary within a company. Because I feel like if you, for example, if you do crush it in a particular project and you do make that request of, I would like to get more credit, if possible.
I would say
you then become a lightning rod for being a resource for everybody else. So how do you balance that?
Like I would say one thing is that to realize, because if we've all been there, if you've done enough and you've been getting shit done, there comes this point when all of a sudden you feel like someone has like turned you into like a horse or like a mule that has all the gear going up the side of the mountain. But the thing to realize, though, is that you have power in that moment. Like if all of a sudden you have 5 things that are coming at you, and all of a sudden that means that people depending on you, they know that you can get it done, that you have quality with your work, that all of a sudden gives you power to say, listen, if you know how important my work is, if you know how quality it is, you know what I bring to the table, then you're going to know that if I say I need more time for this, that I need more time for this. Like if what you expect out of me is something that's at an A, in order to do that, I need to do these things.
Just 3 quick tips. 1, I send weekly goals to my supervisor on Monday, so it forces me to have a bigger picture for the week. So it forces me to be at least visionary for the week. I don't know if it's going to happen, but at least Monday I'm setting a table. I've thought about sending that to my teams as well, just so there's insight of goals on both sides. I haven't quite gotten to that second part yet, but I'm thinking about doing that. The second piece that I think can help is starting to hear other people on your team's names as your own. So you got to go to that insecure part of your brain, and when someone calls them out as doing a good job, you got to train your brain so that it's someone telling you you did a good job. And that takes a little bit of confidence in yourself, but I'm pretty sure we can get there. And then the third is really by Fridays to kind of send some of what we, in the industry, it's a sexist thing, but used to call attaboy emails, right? You did great on this, you did great on that, and CCing supervisors and other folks who were involved. And you gotta give what you get, right? You want positive feedback, I think you have to give it.
I think like when that happens and people start to rely on you, like you said, for getting this thing done and sending people your way for that, you have to create some follow-up to that feedback loop, because if somebody's asking you to take on roles and like be a point person for somebody, you have to follow up with whoever gave you that assignment and say, hey, this is now taking up 50% of my day where it used to take up 20%.
Yes.
What can I drop if this is the thing you're telling me is important? Or if I continue on this path where it's 50% of my job, maybe we need to look at what my job description is and resource it differently. I asked for a raise.
Thank you.
Over here.
Hi, my name's Dan, and I guess my question is more guided to the sports people up there. So how do you go about like separating the fan in you versus like when you're actually doing your job?
I was literally on Twitter screaming about the Twins playing the Yankees 2 days ago, so that perhaps was not smart. It's, I think in a place like Twitter or Facebook or wherever where it's performative, like it's fun. Like I can make those jokes there. I hope no one's taking me serious. But aside from that, it's just, I got to do the job. And so I was working on a story earlier this, I guess last month, that was about Aaron Judge. And, they were on a crash course to play the Twins in the wild card. I can't like hate on Aaron Judge. I got to be able to look at this objectively. I'm working on a story, I'm editing a story right now about the Timberwolves, and it's kind of critical. And I have to be able to say like, the broader message here is more important than my own personal feelings.
Yeah, like I don't know if I showed up my tattoo when I did something, but like that fandom kind of runs deep. I'm a Saints fan. It just is what it is. But like I'm fortunate now to be at SB Nation where our tagline is "Come fan with us." We have no guise to the fact that like we operate from a fan perspective. Even when we get to the reporting level, I think it takes sometimes a really invested fan to look critically at your team. Because like, I love the Saints, and I'm having a hard time with still watching football in general, as a lot of people in this country are, for a variety of different reasons. I love the outcome of the games, and I want to see Drew Brees pass for 5,000 yards every season. But, you know, like, I have to be real about the fact that, you know, they have some issues with their medical staff and have for kind of a long time. We have ownership issues. We have a GM who is running the Saints and the Pelicans at the same time. And so you can do journalism based on the idea that, like, the interest that you have, the curiosity that you have stems from a fan perspective. But when you get into interviews, you have to ask unbiased questions. And you have to represent yourself in a way on Twitter and on social media in a manner that, like, is not gonna get you in trouble when you're asking for credentials or when you're, like, face to face with that athlete. Because, like, right, that's like the ultimate, oh, I saw you popping shit on Twitter. Yeah, if that's ever happened to you as a sports writer, you learn real quick not to pop shit on Twitter.
In fairness, I mean, Cam Newton did just sort of
Yeah.
have that problem. Last question.
Hi, yes. As women in leadership, or even just women in general with clear and concise communication styles, how did you deal with potential pushback or questions that your male counterparts did not get?
That's a great question.
So this is going to sound, so I said I was an idealist at the beginning of the talk, but the real talk is that I've kind of accepted that that is what's going to happen, right? And so I fight that. I hope my daughters don't go through that. But I kind of, again, I really try to keep my eyes on the prize. And in some ways, for the work we do, like, you don't know if at the end the revolution's gonna be won, right? I have control over the stories I'm trying to tell. And so for me, you almost have to think smaller, but think bigger. You think cosmically beyond your male counterparts, right? We're out to change the world. So I'm about something bigger than these guys and the questions that they might not be getting and what people think of me. And I got shit to do, right? So that really does help kind of keep that double standard at bay, because I know it exists. And despite that, I got to get shit done.
I'm the boss. So that's part of it.
That's all right.
But this is like real talk. But the second part is when there is pushback and it's maybe valid, that's the part that I'm trying to understand, is to say that, like, oh, like, I can see that we're not on the same page about this. Can you articulate what your pushback is? Is it to the whole thing? Is it to one part of the thing? What would you change about the request that I've just given you, or the conversation that we've just entered into? And if you can sort of start to separate those pieces of pushback into digestible things, then we can address them, right? Some of those are just based on decisions that are not your decision, they're my decision, so that's what we're going with. Or some of them are pieces of feedback that may be feedback against what our overall mission statement is. Well, that exists somewhere, and I can pull that back out and show that to you. It's like receipts.
Thank you.
I think that's all the time we have. So thanks, everybody here, for coming to the Art of Shouldn't Get Done. A round of applause. Hug each other, love each other, buy the book at the table outside. It's not outside. Thanks for coming, everybody.